Alrighty guys, it is Quaman here today and I'm bringing you another Dragon Ball Z segment on what if Piccolo killed Frieza in his second form. And this is actually a video request from Josh from Dragon Ball Nation. So in today's video, I'll discuss how Piccolo killing Frieza in his second form would affect both timelines, the alternative paths that it would create, and how it would affect the social interactions between characters. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So, let me start off by discussing how it would affect the events of the main timeline. Now, for those of you who are probably curious as to whether or not Piccolo would have had the power to defeat Frieza in his second form, I just wanted to point out that the Daishenzu 7 states that Piccolo was strong enough to defeat Frieza in his second form, and considering the fact that Piccolo forced Frieza to transform and didn't get a chance to fight properly without his weighted clothing, leads me to state that he could have taken Frieza in his second form. If Piccolo killed Frieza in his second form, he would then focus on killing Vegeta. This is based off of the anime and the manga, in which Piccolo directly stated that once he was done with Frieza, he would deal with Vegeta.
Wait, I recognize you. You're the one we destroyed so easily on Earth. I can't believe these fools wasted their wishes bringing you back to life. Do me a favor. Just keep your big mouth shut. Then, after we beat Frieza, it'll be you and me, head to head.
Because of the fact that Goku would still be in the rejuvenation chamber for some time, suggests that he would have no impact in stopping Piccolo even if he spoke to him telepathically, and Gohan and Krillin would probably have no impact in stopping him as well, due to Piccolo's insistence to kill Vegeta. I also want to point out the fact that because Piccolo fused with Nail, that would further intensify the amount of animosity towards Vegeta, as he was responsible for killing several Nameks. So all of these signs lead me to say that Vegeta would have definitely have been killed, especially since this was before Vegeta's Zenkai boost that he received from Dende and Krillin, so he wouldn't have been close in power. Now, the series changes significantly with the absence of Vegeta. After Frieza is dead, Goku would emerge from the rejuvenation chamber and would now become the strongest Z fighter because of the fact that he still would have received the Zenkai boost from earlier. They would all board the spaceship and go home. Now, some of you would probably think that Piccolo would opt into staying on planet Namek due to Nail's influence, and because it would have been an option rather than force as it originally took place. But considering the fact that Piccolo could have chosen to go to New Namek after the Namek stayed on Earth, would suggest that he is more comfortable staying on Earth even with Nail's influence. However, before the Z Fighters leave Namek, Kami and Mr. Popo would wish back all of the Nameks with Earth's Dragon Balls. Then the Nameks would select a new leader after Guru dies again. Then the Z Fighters would probably stay on Namek for a little bit just to wish back all of their friends, so there would be a slight delay in when the Z Fighters would arrive back on Earth, as they would probably use a spaceship instead of wasting a wish to teleport. However, Krillin wouldn't be dead, and considering the fact that they would have one more wish to use from earlier, they would use it to bring back Yamcha. A few months would pass, and then they would then wish for Tien and Chaozu to come back. Now, King Cole is the next biggest obstacle for the Z Warriors to deal with, and a huge X factor in this entire plot. At some point of time, even though it's unknown, King Cole would figure out that Frieza was killed due to all of the dead henchmen and Frieza himself not responding. Because of the technological advancement of Frieza's empire, he would eventually reach Namek. The exact time is unknown, but because of the lack of communication, my guess is that his arrival would be delayed. Originally, he went straight to Namek because it blew up and that attracted a lot of attention. Because of the lack of communication, it could take some time, and by then the Z Fighters would all have most likely have been revived. Once he gets to Namek, he would probably interrogate them to find out what happened. The Nameks would probably refuse in all likelihood, and he would most likely blow up the planet out of frustration. Now, as far as going to Earth is concerned, it's very difficult to gauge exactly when and how he would go to Earth, but due to the fact that Frieza spied on Vegeta and Nappa when they were on Earth leads me to believe that at some point King Cole's henchmen may be able to put two and two together and determine that they should go to Earth, considering the fact that Vegeta and Nappa considered going to Namek after talking to Piccolo. However, it would be delayed for sure, which would probably be by about a year. I'm taking an educated guess here, after it originally happened, so it would probably take place in age 765 as opposed to age 764, a year after Trunks had killed Frieza from the main timeline that we know. Now eventually, King Kai would alert the Z-Fighters and tell them that King Cole is on the way. In addition, the Z-Fighters would eventually know that King Cole would have been on the way because of the fact that they would have sensed his huge power level from outer space. Because of this, the Z-Fighters would be ready well in advance due to King Cole blowing up Planet Namek. By this point, Goku is probably not a Super Saiyan yet due to the lack of motivation, and since the Z-Fighters would have had no hope of a Super Saiyan Goku coming to help them, as Goku would have been on Earth and much weaker, this leads me to believe that Piccolo would have absolutely no choice but to fuse with Kami. Now, I know you guys would probably disagree with this due to the fact that Piccolo refused to fuse with Kami even in the original timeline. But keep in mind that this is a situation where the Z-Fighters know for sure that they have no shot, but they have time to prepare, and because of that, Piccolo would make that drastic move. Now, in terms of the actual fight itself, with a Goku who could possibly turn Super Saiyan in the right condition, in conjunction with a Piccolo who fused with Kami, there is little doubt to believe that they wouldn't be able to defeat King Cole. Since Piccolo would have had an extra year of moderate training due to King Piccolo's delay, he would have been stronger than the Piccolo who was on Earth when Trunks showed up. Although he would have been weaker than the Piccolo who fused with Kami to fight Cell and Android 17, he would have been more than strong enough to stop King Cole, especially with Goku's help, and certainly if Goku turns Super Saiyan if the battle goes in King Cole's favor. After King Cole is defeated, due to desperation, the Z-Fighters would be in a unique situation that I have never encountered doing my what-if scenarios. There would be no possibility of ever using the Dragon Balls again because of the fact that King Cole blew up Namek, which eliminates the possibility of using the Namekian Dragon Balls, and since Piccolo fused with Kami, there would no longer be the Earth Dragon Balls. The only possibility of using them would be if Piccolo revitalized the Dragon Balls, but that is too much of a stretch to say, and it is beyond certainty even with Kami's influence. Even if he could bring the balls back, they would need 2 wishes to bring both the Nameks and the Namekians back, and keep in mind that this could take years to accomplish as a whole, not only to recreate the Dragon Balls, but to also make 2 wishes, and by then, the next plot would take place. Within the next 2 years, even though it's possible for Goku to have not acquired it, being consistent with the storyline, Goku would catch the heart virus, as it is implied that the heart virus was a pandemic that took place on Earth, so not going to Yardrat has no effect on him not catching it. Because of that, Goku would die and Piccolo would become the strongest Z-Fighter, with Vegeta being dead and Goku also being dead. Now, we move on to the Android arc. After researching and consulting with the other DBZ tubers, finding out their input and hearing from many of you on my Facebook page, most of us have come to a general consensus. In this scenario, Piccolo probably would have trained moderately as opposed to intensely in the main timeline, in which he trained with Goku and Gohan for 3 years. However, when you factor in that Piccolo got an enormous boost by fusing with Nail, a boost that nearly multiplied his power by at least 10 times, a fusion with Kami would be much greater. Although Piccolo was shown to be on par with 17 after fusing with Kami plus intense training in the main timeline, this leads me to believe that with moderate training and with fusing with Kami, he would be on par with the weaker future androids, and here is why. Considering the fact that Piccolo was not on King Kai's planet for long, would lead me to believe that at most his power would be between 50,000 and 100,000, as Nail told Piccolo he didn't stand a chance against Frieza the way he was, and Nail fought a suppressed Frieza in his base form. Also, when you consider the fact that Vegeta got several Zenkai boosts to skyrocket his power level, that would mean that Piccolo would most likely be below Vegeta prior to fusing with Nail, even though it's hard to determine his exact power level. Also, when you consider the fact that even though training with King Kai can help a lot, it's still very impressive to go from a power level of around 2000 all the way to being stronger than Frieza's top henchman and the Ginyu Force within such a small amount of time. So when you factor all of that in, for Piccolo to get such a boost from Nail to put him higher than second form Frieza shows the power of Namekian fusion. So, from all of what I have said, I use that explanation as a gateway into saying that Namekian fusion has significantly more weight than training, even if Piccolo is training with a person significantly stronger than him as he trained with Goku in the original main timeline. Not to mention, even though the manga never showed the training sequences, the anime implies that Piccolo and Goku were holding back as they were both training with a much weaker person in Gohan despite his hidden power. Now, based on my argument when the androids would appear, this leads me to believe that Piccolo would have been strong enough to at least fight one android and hold his own against two for a small amount of time, which leads me into believing that he would have been strong enough to survive an initial fight without necessarily defeating the androids, especially if it's just one android fighting him, considering the fact that Kid Gohan was said to barely survive, and future Gohan also survived the fight against the androids even though he was a Super Saiyan, in addition to future Trunks also being able to survive a fight against the androids. Also, keep in mind that although Piccolo doesn't have the ability to get a Zenkai boost, he can regenerate and recuperate from a fight better than the others if he was badly damaged. After one fight with the androids, Piccolo, with Kami's influence inside of him, would enter the hyperbolic time chamber with or without Gohan and would come out strong enough to defeat the androids even if Gohan can turn Super Saiyan or not. Now, I will admit that this topic is slightly ambiguous when it pertains to the other Z Fighters because it's a huge guess as to what would happen to them. The manga gives absolutely no indication of how the Z Fighters fought the androids when they arrived and who fought first. The filler Ghost from Tomorrow episode implies that Vegeta and Piccolo fought them first, similar to the history of Trunks where Piccolo fought them first and Vegeta fought second. Being the strongest fighter, if Piccolo fought them first and survived, he would tell the other Z Fighters not to engage as he is obviously the strongest and they could use the hyperbolic time chamber to solve the problem. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking that the hyperbolic time chamber may be destroyed, but from what Blackenfist has suggested, the juvenile personality of the androids would cause them to take some time to hunt down the Z Fighters, and one day is really all what Piccolo needs. After one day, he could take on the androids with or without the assistance of another Z Fighter. In most likely cases, it would be Gohan who would fight with him, and the Earth would be saved. Babidi most likely wouldn't show up because of the lack of energy on Earth, and if he did, Piccolo is not the type of character who would allow Babidi to unleash Majin Buu, as we see in the series that he actually attempted to kill Babidi himself. The only obstacle would be Dabura, who is around the strength of Perfect Cell, and in my opinion he's not as strong as Super Perfect Cell based off of his fight with Gohan. Dabura would most likely be stronger than Piccolo unless Piccolo trained intensely over those years. But it's safe to say that of all these events, it is very possible that maybe a Z Fighter could have died at the hands of the androids, but it's hard to determine that. If they did, the Dragon Balls would never be used again since Namek is gone and Piccolo is fused with Kami, unless Piccolo creates new Dragon Balls, as I mentioned before, with Kami's influence, but that is too much of a stretch to say, and that's fan fiction, not logical reasoning. Now, if you guys disagree that Piccolo would be strong enough to survive an initial fight, I just wanted to point out that that plot is pretty simple. The Z Fighters will probably all die eventually in a similar manner, and if Gohan survives, he would have no Trunks to train. Maybe he can use Bulma's time machine to change things, which is why I forward you to another video I discussed talking about what if future Gohan went to the past, so you guys can get a feeling of how that would turn out, and I will leave that video in the outro. Moving on, let's touch on some of the social interactions that would change. Goten would probably never be born due to Goku dying, and there would be no Dragon Balls to wish Goku back. Gohan would probably be the second strongest Z fighter, or potentially the strongest if he continued to train with Piccolo, based on the myriad of circumstances that I presented, and it's likely that he would at least learn the first stage of a Super Saiyan if he trained with Piccolo in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. Krillin would never marry Android 18 and would never have Marin as a child because Piccolo would have killed Android 18. Trunks would never be born due to Piccolo killing Vegeta. Hercule would never gain as much popularity as he originally did without killing Cell. Gohan and Videl may still meet up if Gohan still goes to school, but the circumstances would be very different due to Goku being dead. Also, if Cell ever shows up in the present, by the time he develops, he would be no match for Piccolo, as it would take about 24 years after Piccolo and Goku would have defeated King Cole, which is an insane amount of time to get stronger than imperfect Cell, who is probably less powerful than even the weaker future androids initially before absorbing lots of humans. Let me also mention that Cell would not have a time machine to go back in the past and get the androids with. As far as Dr. Gero and his lab are concerned, it's hard to detail what exactly would have happened, but it is assumed that the androids would have wiped him out before terrorizing the Earth, although the filler episode The Horror Won't End implies that he was still alive for some time during the android's terror. Bulma may or may not have stayed with Yamcha due to the lack of Vegeta being around, and just for you guys who want to talk about Battle of Gods, Beerus would probably have no interest in the Earth due to Piccolo not having the potential to become a Super Saiyan God, and he would have never become an ally of the Earth. And yes guys, Fukatsu no F would have been impossible to have happened since there would be no Dragon Balls to wish Frieza back with unless Piccolo revitalized them, which is a stretch to say. But as far as Piccolo goes, he would become the Kami of Earth, if you can translate my words. So guys, that has been my video for today. I spent months planning this video out and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please check out Dragon Ball Nation, who requested this topic, as he also helped me plan this out, along with the other YouTubers who shared their thoughts on this topic. I will leave links to what if future Gohan went to the past, along with how strong was Piccolo at the end of the series, in the outro for you guys to check out. But most importantly, over everything else, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, and remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys.